What is going on, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. I'm Sean Davis. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe here to the channel if you are new. Joining me today, we have a very special guest to bring hopefully some optimism for Laker fans. Got my guy Khobi Price, Lakers reporter for SoCal News Group. Has a great Lakers insider show on Bleacher Report every Tuesday. You guys can follow him on Twitter at Khobi_Price. Khobi, my man, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me, Sean. This is it's a treat. First time you have me on, so appreciate the invite onto the show.
Absolutely. Well, really quickly before we get into what the planned agenda, just news just dropped pretty recently. I think maybe 15 minutes prior to us hopping on here, that the Lakers injury report for Game 5 is completely the same, except Maxi Kleber has now been upgraded to questionable entering Game 5 of the Lakers series against the Timberwolves, down 3-1. They play tomorrow at 7 o'clock Pacific time. Khobi, do you have any thoughts on Maxi Kleber, the injury update, and if he is actually available, does he change anything at this stage in the series?
It's hard for me to believe that after being out for, it's been 3 months, because I think he suffered the injury, I think January 25th. So it's been over 3 months. It's hard for me to believe that after all this time, not playing a game, that the Lakers would use him in a do or die Game 5 in which they're down 3-1 to the Timberwolves, especially in the manner that the series has gone. But it's a credit to him that, after being out for so long, after having, suffering a serious injury and having to have surgery on it, that, he's in the position that he's, to possibly be made available after missing such significant time. So what he could provide, I can already hear like a lot of Lakers fans saying start him over Jackson. And I can just like hear it buzzing in my head right now.
I think I hear it too.
Yeah, but after, again, the expectations for him after missing 3 months, after not playing an NBA game, and you're going to throw it's hard to expect someone to just be thrown into not just playoffs, but a playoff series that's been as physical and as physically demanding as this series. So my expectations would just be that he's possibly made available, but I have a hard time seeing him actually play. But if he does, if he does somehow play, there's the spacing, there's the shooting, a little bit more versatile in terms of being able to guard, maybe some 5, maybe, guard a little bit of 4. But again, I just, at least as of right now, I do have a tough time seeing him not being, he can be available, but actually playing meaningful minutes tomorrow.
Yeah. I made a tweet like right before we hopped on here that this better not be 2024 Christian Wood, where he's out for this extended period of time, and then right when the Lakers are about to get eliminated, oh, hey, Christian Wood and Vander are available, and then we just never see them in Game 5 of that Denver series. I really hope it's not that. But I think Maxi Kleber can provide some stuff for you. I think, like you said, the stretch 5 ability. And this is a down shooting season for him, but I think he would still be treated as someone you have to respect as a pick and pop option, and then has some versatility, enough versatility to be able to switch and do some of the stuff that the Lakers want to do defensively. It sucks because like 3 years ago, I would have really, really loved Maxi Kleber. But you're now dealing with Maxi Kleber coming off of it's a knee, right? Am I tripping?
No, right foot. Okay. Right foot. And that's the other thing. Right foot surgery. That's the other thing. We're thinking about, you brought up 3 years ago, but let's just go back to 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Like it was evident, at least to me, that, it's not the same player as he was when they made their runs to their conference finals in 2022. Yep. That was 3 years ago. And now we're also talking about a guy coming off of foot surgery. That's even like an even tougher expectation. So that's why I'm just like, okay, he can be available, but if he can be available but not play, and if he can even play, what's realistic in terms of expectations for him after being out for so long?
The one thing he kind of has working for him is the fact that he's been practicing with the team for a little while. That's the one thing that kind of gives me some semblance of optimism. But like, regardless, you haven't played an NBA game in 3 months, and last time we saw you, you were clearly not the same player. To your point, so definitely. So I'm not putting all my eggs in the Maxi Kleber basket for sure.
I'm not doing a good job of providing optimism today. Not doing my best job, but we'll see if I can change that.
Sources say if you would have sung in the video with Jovan and Dan, the Lakers would have won that game. That's what I heard. But
that's what you heard. Yeah. I like that I have that level of ability to impact games. Maybe if I did that, they would be they would be tied 2-2 instead of down 3-1.
That's funny. Sorry, so let's get into it now officially. Another thing that also happened today, JJ Redick. I didn't hear the soundbite, more so going off of what was quoted. JJ says that basically that the fatigue was not a factor at all in Game 4. The fact that they played LeBron, Luka, Austin, Dorian, and Rui the entire second half, and he feels that essentially like Bron and Luka missing those layups down the stretch had nothing to do with fatigue. What's your reaction to hearing him kind of explain his thought process there, and do you agree necessarily with what JJ had to say?
My thought, it to me, when he says this, it could be one of those multiple things can be true at once. And there can also be a give and take. So yes, I mean, whether it's the coach, whether it's the actual players, because we asked, I think we asked Dorian, maybe we asked Luka as well. Yeah. We asked players even post game on Sunday, was fatigue a factor for the 5 players who did play the entire second half, 24 straight minutes of Game 4 to close out the game. And, nobody, I mean, even if they're dead tired, most players aren't going to say, yeah, that was exhausting. Yeah, that was tiring, but got to do it. I mean, they're going to say some version of, I make myself available. If coach calls on me, I'm going to do it. X, Y, and Z. Like, that's typically going to be the answer. But if you go back to rewatch, especially like the last few minutes of the game, I mean, you can see guys putting their hands on their knees, like hunched over, slumped over, like, and that's just what the tape showed. Like, that's just literally like why, like, even being in the arena, like there were times where I'm pretty sure it was like Luka and Austin at the same time. I think it was during a dead ball, maybe during a timeout. Like they were both like not too far away from each other, like hands on knees, hunched over, and understandably so. Now the argument could also be is that even if one of them got a sub, or if there's like a sub, coming in and out, maybe the fatigue would be there anyway. I mean, this has been a physical series. This has been these games have been excruciating just in terms of from a physical standpoint. So the fatigue the fatigue's going to be a factor regardless. Like, how are you able to sustain your levels, in the fourth quarter when you've been playing, 38, 40, 42 minutes, multiple games in a row. Like, that's going to be a factor. But to do that 24 straight minutes, yeah, I mean, again, multiple things can be true at once. I do personally believe that fatigue played some of a factor in the stretch of that game, and that's not to take any credit away from Minnesota, and that's not to say anything about the Lakers' conditioning, what have you. But my eyes, when I see players hunched over, when I see them, hands on knees, trying to find their breath, I have a hard time believing it's anything other than fatigue. But that being said, even when you're fatigued, and players will tell you this, you still gotta make your layups. You still gotta inbound the ball properly.
You still handle full court pressure.
Still handle full court pressure. I think one of the underrated plays that went against the Lakers was the foul that Austin had on Jaden McDaniels.
That's underrated?
Under-discussed. Under-discussed, sure. I should say. Yeah, under-discussed, because at that point, like, to me, it was pretty clear that McDaniel, like, he had the space to finish. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those just like late fouls where you're not going to make a difference in the play. Like, you're out of the play and you're just like fouling. Like, it was just one of those like lazy fouls, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But that's the difference between, tied 113 versus, all right, McDaniels makes the free throw. Now I think they're up 113.
Yep.
And again, marginal stuff. I'm sure we're going to get into this at a certain point, but that small detail, like they lost by 3 because Edwards hit, the free throws down the stretch, but that matters. Like, the fact that they were down 1 instead of tied at 113, like, that's significant. So, but that's, to me, is also fatigue. Maybe if you had the extra legs, extra energy, you make the full rotation instead of making the late foul. So, even if fatigue is a factor, it's not an excuse. You still have to make the plays, but I have a hard time believing, based off what I saw. And again, this also doesn't excuse like their poor ending of games and games 1 through 3. Like again, to JJ's point, he is correct. In those other games, they still struggled with how they close games, and that's something I'm sure we'll get into because I think the issues were different in those games versus this one or in Game 4. But yeah, fatigue can be a factor. But even through fatigue, you gotta find a way to execute. You gotta find a way to still make those defensive rotations. You gotta find a way to bring the ball up the floor, inbound properly. Like there's still things you have to do despite fatigue.
Yeah, and the actual JJ quote, when asked if he thinks fatigue played a role in the fourth quarter, no. And you know what? Looking back now, what have we scored? 19, 20, and 13 in the fourth quarters is a trend more so than the fatigue. And our two best players missed layups at the rim. I don't think they missed layups because they were tired. So kind of to your point. I brought up the full court pressure. I do think that doesn't help the fatigue either because you're just dealing with 6'10", super lengthy Jaden McDaniels just harassing you 94 feet. And it specifically talking about that Austin Reeves possession. Yeah, that's a goofy foul. Like respectfully, very clearly it was just a late rotation. He just completely missed the rotation in general. Like you said, just give him the late fouls are just again very, very goofy. I'm use that word. Because like you said, it just does nothing except hurt your team even more. When you already, it's the equivalent. Like Russell Westbrook, I hate that I'm like bringing up Russ at a time like this, but Russ specifically is the perfect player to use for this. If Russ turns the ball over, you can almost expect a foul right after. Like, okay, I already hurt our team, so I'm gonna hurt our team even more by fouling. Like for what? Like what are we doing this for? And that's kind of what that play was. Where okay, I hurt our team. Bron rotated up. I think it was a short roll pass or something in that regard, but if I remember correctly. Bron rotated up to stop the ball. Jaden dives down. Austin, that's supposed to be his rotation. And Austin was late. Cool. We don't have to hurt our team anymore. I gave it the rotation. We'll live with it being tied. Lakers had a timeout. And then you have like the ridiculous challenge thing. I don't know what that was.
What do you mean?
Where the Lakers, they thought it was their ball. Oh, and Minnesota. Lakers thought it was their ball. They called timeout. Minnesota challenged. They won the challenge, and it goes against the Lakers. It turns they lost their timeout because they still called it.
Yeah. I didn't. So they announced it in the arena because I didn't know about this rule, to be quite honest with you. But because they challenged within 30 seconds of the Lakers calling the timeout, they were still able to challenge.
Okay.
Minnesota still. Like I said, I didn't know that was a rule because they announced it over the PA system, or the PA person. They announced it in real time, which I was like, I had no clue. Like I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, it was. You would think that in that scenario, I mean, I guess teams will call back-to-back timeouts regardless because you have to use the timeout to use the challenge anyway. Right. So that's like, and not like we see it all the time. A team will call a timeout, guys will act like they're about to step back out. All right, then another timeout. All right, it's like okay. Well, then you like now it's basically whatever 2.5 minutes instead of 1:15. But yeah, it was still interesting that's how it played out.
Yeah. So the Lakers obviously down 3-1 in this series for more than run reason, but we'll both give one here. Khobi, what's kind of been, in your opinion, the biggest issue that you've seen from this Lakers team throughout this series so far?
I mean, there are multiple, but when I was really thinking about and analyzing the series, a lot of it's just marginal stuff. Like the Lakers, like the funny thing is, if you look at the totality of the series, the Lakers are the better shooting team. Now, obviously, there's only 4 games. We're working with small samples. But, the Lakers have been the more efficient shooting team, especially after knocking down, I think, it was 17 threes in Game 4 and 17 in Game 3 and 19 in Game 4, something along those lines. And we're talking about 35, 36 threes across 2 games that you lost, that they lost, 1 by 3, 1 by 14, or 1 by 13. So, it's the marginal stuff. It's the lack of, allowing Minnesota to get as many offensive rebounds as they've had over the last couple games or the entire series. It's the turnovers, and igniting Minnesota's fast break by consistently turning the ball over. The ironic thing is Minnesota came into this series, not really a fast team, not really a team that was getting out in transition a lot, getting out in the open floor a lot. but they're still young, relatively to most teams, in terms of, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo. Like, they're still young, they're still athletic. So if you give them, and the scouting reports out on the Lakers of, run on this team, because we may not be the fastest team, but they're even slower. So it's the turnovers, the offensive rebounding, some of the into quarter stuff, not finishing quarter strong. I think that particularly hurt them in Game 4 with how they ended the first and second quarter. I mean, there was, I think they were up by 10
in the first quarter for sure.
They were up by 10 at the end of I think it was 32-22. Luka missed the layup.
Yep.
Other end, Timberwolves get a layup, and I think that was either a 6-0 run, because then they were down by 4, 32-28. When the Lakers, they were flirting with being up by double digits, 10-12, and then they were up, I think it was 55-52, around 2.5 minutes left to go before halftime. The Timberwolves go on their runs in the second. They were up 61-58. So stuff like that, like that's what, I'm not doing the best math, but that's at least a double-digit swing.
Yeah.
We're talking about 15. We don't have to do the math in real time. If someone at home wants to do the math for us, it's a double-digit swing in a game that you lost by 3.
Yeah.
That's not free throws. That's not, there are turnovers, but that's just, not being able to close out. Even if you go chalk, and you're like, all right, the lead we had is basically the lead at this point. So the lead we're going to take into the next quarter. We don't gain advantage. We don't lose one. There's a real potential that the Lakers win Game 4. But that's the difference. Again, marginal stuff. So that's to me. We knew the Lakers weren't always the best team in terms of winning possessions, which is usually offensive rebounding and turnovers. And we also know that they've sometimes struggled with ending quarters. And just in terms of they'll have a 5-point lead and the next thing you know it's tied, or they're by double digits, then it's close single digits, or they'll be tied and next thing you know the other team takes a big lead. So it's nothing new, but in a series which has been, I know Minnesota's dominated the fourth quarters, but relatively competitive, their inability to win those margins consistently have hurt. The one game they really won those margins was Game 2. That's the game they won, and even then, their poor fourth quarter allowed, honestly, not just fourth quarter, but they went up big early, and then Minnesota just slowly chipped away at it, and they were not lucky, but they won by single digits despite leading by, 19 at the end of the first?
Yeah.
So I think they were up by 20 at one point. So to me, those have been the differences in this series. There have been a lot of differences, but those have been the main ones.
I think the fact that the Lakers just haven't been able to match the Wolves' lineup versatility in this series, where the Timberwolves have a solid 8 guys. They're going to roll out their starters with Mike and Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy. But then off the bench, they have a really reliable 3 in Nas, obviously, but Dante and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And just by having those 8 guys, they can basically play whatever lineup they want at all times and have some semblance of size and speed, athleticism, while also be able to, formulate lineups that have the balance of shooting as well. The lineup that they've closed with, I want to say both Game 3 and Game 4, with Dante, Ant, Jaden, Julius, and Nas, is the best lineup in the entire playoffs. I think when I looked at it, was a plus 60 with a 136 offensive rating or something along those lines throughout the playoffs. Now, that's not accounting for last night. That's not accounting for, it doesn't have the games that are being played right now, or at the time of this recording at the very least. But the fact that Minnesota's just be able to dominate the lineups in terms of, okay, look, you want to play Mike Conley off the floor? Cool. We'll just go to Dante. We'll go to Nah. You want to play Rudy off the floor, where I legitimately think Rudy gets played off the floor because of how much of a drag he is offensively. I very rarely think it's a defensive thing, especially in this series. He's been perfectly fine switching. Okay, cool. You want to play Rudy off the floor and make him a non-factor? Cool. We'll just go with all the wings and all the size still. It'd still be bigger than you. It still have a 30% offensive rebounding percentage, which goes to the point that you were kind of highlighting as well. Whereas the Lakers, they've kind of played their 5, their depth lineup or whatever, which it's a -6, I think. Small sample size still, but they played their depth lineup. You're going to get 13 minutes of Gabe Vincent. like a first half stint of Vando, and that's about it. I mean, you're gonna get the opening tip and 70 seconds of Jackson Hayes, and that's about it. So I think the lack of like real lineup versatility and just from the Lakers really, really hurts them. And the fact that the Lakers aren't able to functionally put together two-way lineups consistently. Where you look at their best lineup, like I said, the Luka, Braun, AR, Rui, and DFS lineup, you would probably say I think we all agree that's their best lineup, but there's just so many holes you can still pick at on both ends of the floor still, especially in a series like this where Minnesota's done a good job at kind of magnifying some of those flaws in the Lakers roster construction.
I think another thing, it was also fun. I was looking it up already speaking, was that I remember going like in the previews for the series, like trying to figure out, like, obviously watch Minnesota, but like what are their best lineups? Obviously their starting lineup, the typical stars, it's a strong lineup. But like even the regular season, it wasn't like dominant with, Conley, Ant, McDaniels, Randall, Gobert. The lineup they've really been dominating with Ant, Dante, McDaniels, Randall, not like that wasn't really a great lineup during the regular season. Like it was actually one of their.
It's like a -8, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty. It wasn't good at all during the regular season. It was one of their worst lineups of their highest highest play lineups.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just been dominant. Like to me, that's been one of the lineups where you really see them taking advantage of the Lakers being slower and the versatility or lack of versatility on their end. And to your point, I mean, that's why I know that a lot of people have now, it was even before Game 4, but have been clamoring for Dorian Finney-Smith to start Game 5 in place of Jackson Hayes, and I get why, but I have another suggestion for starters if you're going to go away from Jackson Hayes, which at this point, I think.
Are you going Vando?
Yeah,
okay.
That would be my suggestion.
I like the idea of bringing Dorian off the bench.
Yeah, it's also not even. It's not even about. It's less about Dorian. So this is my view on the lineup stuff, at least with the Lakers, is that I agree. Like that lineup, the Lasers lineup, as JJ calls it, as the team refers to it as. I mean, I think they played 27 minutes in Game 4. But other than that, I think there's a point of diminishing returns with that lineup where if you overexpose, like if you're playing the same lineup over and over again or for so many minutes, then you're just going to overexpose yourself. If you give a team the same look over and over again, then they're going to be able to adjust, figure out, like you said, poke holes in your weaknesses. And I think regardless of who starts, I mean, we've kind of seen that lineup's going to play. They're going to figure out a way to play around 12, 15, 18 minutes in the game regardless. I think around 20 minutes is the point where you're starting to see, all right, this lineup, I don't know if you can sustain it for close to half a game, let alone 27 minutes. So I think I would heavily consider, starting Vando, not just for a lineup, like switching up the lineup, but also I wanted, one of the issues to me is that he just hasn't guarded Anthony Edwards enough this series. But part of that is just also the substitution pattern. Like he's coming in so late in the quarters, in the first quarter. And I mean, obviously Game 4, he didn't play in the second half, but he's coming in so late in the quarter. Like there's only so many opportunities, and he's going to be playing back up until he's playing backup 5, and up until last game, like mostly the 5s have been guarding 5s. Like except last game, like we saw Rui start off on Gobert and then Jackson on McDaniels. But I think if you started Vando, you could put him on Ant to start, or you could put him on McDaniels to start. If you wanted to, but I would suggest, start him on Ant, put Rui on Rudy, and then you could put, I don't know, Austin on Conley, and then you could put LeBron on Randall. You could put LeBron and McDaniels on, or Luka McDaniels. Probably, honestly, LeBron and McDaniels, Luka on Randall, and then that's where you kind of just go from there. I mean, they seem comfortable with Luka on Randall, at least to start Game 3 or Game 4 rather. So that would be my take on it. And then you're going to bring DFS probably like a few minutes into the game anyway.
Like 3, yeah.
Unless there's foul trouble, you're going to be playing Austin, Rui, LeBron, and Luka. Like they're all going to play 38 plus minutes, 40 minutes, regardless. So there's going to be plenty of times where they all see the court. But I think you're going to get to it, but you don't need to have it, immediately. And you don't overexpose yourself.
So 2 points about the Vando thing really quickly. One, I think with Vando playing, I think it's just beneficial. In the regular season, I thought the lineup data with Vando wasn't really beneficial to him because a lot of the times we were seeing Vando in one initiator lineups, specifically with Luka. It would be Luka, Gabe, Goodwin, Vando, DFS, or something like that. That'll be the extent of the lineup. Or, okay, swap Luka for Braun, or swap Luka for they wouldn't do it at Austin, but it would basically be that. I think the idea that you're having there, like putting Vando with all 3 initiators or 2 of the initiators, I think the lineup data for Vando in the series, if I recall correctly, kind of favors him, but it's because kind of like I was saying, he's playing with multiple initiators to where if, okay, you stall out the Lakers' initial wave of offense, cool, we still have a secondary option in Braun or Austin or Luka, depending on who's on the floor with each other. And I had that such a big reaction because that's been like one of my more frustrating parts about this team all year is why they don't use Vando as a wing stopper or a point of attack guy. It's one of the few things I thought Darvin did a great job at was properly utilizing Vando defensively, because that's what he's elite at, is guarding these iso-centric guard/wings. And with the Lakers switch everything defensive scheme anyway, that neutralizes any ball screen navigation, which is one of his weaknesses in my opinion. So I don't understand why we don't just throw him on opposing teams best wing and best guard. I can't recall a matchup where they've actually off rip said, look, you're going to go match him. It's almost always kind of been, look, we're going to play you as a small 5 and we're going to let you be away from the action and try to muck things up. But that just hasn't been the most impactful. He'll get his steal because he's just a playmaker defensively, but there's not a major matchup against an elite wing or an elite guard where you can, unless I'm blanking, where you could confidently say, yeah, no, the Lakers went to him and threw him on X assignment.
I think the only game I can think of right now off the top of my head was, I think it was the second game at OKC.
Okay.
And I think maybe it would have been the third quarter, because the only reason I'm remembering, I don't know the matchup data, how often he defended Shea or Jalen Williams.
Yeah.
But I just remember because that was the most notable time him and Jackson were on the floor together. And it stuck out because he was everywhere. He was wreaking havoc, but he was wreaking havoc because he wasn't the backup. He wasn't playing the 5. He had Jackson playing the 5 and Vando could be the 4 or whatever you wanted to call him in that situation. Running around, wreaking havoc. He could be more perimeter oriented as opposed to, being against a big or being on the, lower on the court, near the rim. So that's the only time I had to go back to obviously look at the how often did he defend Shea or how often did he defend Jalen, in that specific game. But yeah, just bigger picture, he's better off when he's able to play either next to a big man or just be more perimeter oriented. He can do big man stuff in terms of rebounding, being a presence on the inside, but he's at his best when he can be, guarding the team's best opposing player in a switch heavy scheme, or maybe even a trap scheme. If you're trapping anything where he doesn't have to navigate screens, that's where it gets a little tricky for him. But if you're able to keep him out of those actions, then yeah, that's when he can thrive and he can be running around, recovering. He can just be, defensively just wreak havoc.
And especially with going with the lineup that you had, where Luka, Braun, and Luka is a really bad on-ball defender. I think Luka doesn't get enough credit for some of his off-ball stuff, but Braun's going to be closer to the rim regardless anyway. Rui's going to kind of be the tweener. They'll switch with Rui a lot on the perimeter. They trust him, but still, you have guys that are going to be able to be behind you. Braun in this series has been a excellent backline defender. So in theory, going with your lineup, I think that's something they could actually turn to in Game 5 potentially.
It was my suggestion before Game 4 if they were going to go in that direction. And I think now, we asked JJ, he said TBD. Okay,
get ready to watch the def lineup for 48 minutes.
Oh man, I just won't forget, because I think again, understated part was when it looked like Gabe was about to sub in late in the third quarter around the 140 mark. because he walked toward the scores table. And I remember it was just so notable because nobody had walked toward the scores table for the Lakers the entire quarter. So it was like, oh wow, someone's about to come in. And then there was no bet, there wasn't a true dead ball situation. So he wound up walking back to the bench around the around maybe 1 minute mark, 1:10. And then it was like, all right, so maybe he'll come back in to start the fourth quarter. Because he was going to sub in, how that goes sometimes. If you can't get in before the quarter ends, it'll start the next
when
quarter.
They should have subbed him in. You had a gap to be able to do that, for sure.
Yeah. And again, I'm not putting that loss on I'm not putting the loss on them playing all 40, on all 24 rather. Again, go back to the first quarter. They lost in the first, lost in the second. Turnovers, rebound, these are all issues that have been issues the entire series. However, there are ways in which you could rely on that lineup for 18 of the 24 minutes of the second half, and it not be consecutive, in which it's just all right, we're just going to roll these guys out for the entire time together. Even if you want to do a 6-man rotation in the second half and play Gabe, Gabe is the only guy he's playing. He's playing 6 minutes to either 2 minutes to close the third, and 4 minutes to start the fourth, and then you go back to those 5 in the final 8. You can have him be you could have guys like Luka, he could have subbed in for LeBron for the final 2 of the third, and then to start the fourth, Austin's on the bench, and then you can just kind of rotate, have a rotating sub, just so you have guys can get a break. But
you had options for sure.
Yeah, there are options.
All right. Let's talk about Game 5. So, one last thing. There's been a major talking point throughout the entire series has been Luka Doncic's performance. And some of it I think is somewhat fair. I think some of it is a little overblown. Luka Doncic in this series, I just had his stats pulled up. Luka Doncic in the series is still averaging his regular 30 plus. Got his all right, cool. 31 points, 7 boards, 5 assists is in the series. 61.7% true shooting. That's pretty good. The one lower scoring game, or the one game in this series they did not have 30 points was Game 3, where he was very, very clearly sick. Honestly, kudos to him for even trying to play through that. Is averaging 4.5 turnovers, is averaging only 5 assists. There's been a big deal made of Luka's last 2 series in the playoffs, the finals against the Celtics, and this series only averaging 5 assists. And did they have teams figured him out? And you have the defensive stuff of Luka. Khobi, what have just been your thoughts in general on Luka throughout the series? Do you think some of the stuff about Luka has been justified or unfair?
I think it depends on what criticism you're providing is justified, and depending on the other criticism is unfair. I think what's justified is, some of it's not his fault, but it's his fault, but he shouldn't be in this position defensively. We've seen time and time again where Lakers switch, Anthony Edwards is on Luka, and he's getting blown by, or maybe he's on the weak side and there's a skip pass and he has a bad closeout, and it's Jay McDaniels getting to the rim, or it's whoever Luka's guarding is getting to the rim or getting to the paint. Mm-hmm. To me, those are justified criticisms of you just have to be better defensively. And there have been moments, honestly, where if it's been on a one-on-one drive, he's held up on his own. I know you said off the ball he doesn't get enough credit. I think there's been moments in this series where on the ball he's just been better in terms of just holding his own and not allowing a blow by or not allowing a drive straight into the paint or just a straight line drive. But as a whole, it just had the defense hasn't been good enough. The ability to contain on the perimeter hasn't been good enough. And I think the assists, I don't think that's so much. I think that's more a reflection of how Minnesota's defended him and how they've defended his pick and roll actions, as opposed to him being unwilling to pass or unwilling to share the rock. I haven't seen that or noticed that much, whether live in games or rewatching games. And even the other game, Game 4, what did he finish with?
1 assist.
1 assist in Game 4.
I think it was 38. Was it 38, 1 and 2? Yeah, no, exactly. 38, 1 and 2. 2 assists.
He had 2 assists. And he had one in game 1, but in game 4, I mean, they were just like, especially when the Minnesota started hedging and blitzing a lot in that third quarter.
I don't know why they did that, but thanks. Please do it more.
I'm still amazed that they did that. There was just a lot of point like that led to their most productive or offensively productive quarter in the entire series. And I think Luka ended up with, I'll look it up right now. He had 0 assists in that quarter. He had 0 assists, but the Lakers as a team had 9 in a quarter that they made 13 shots. So, but he's not getting some of these assists that, he would deserve credit for. Like, he's getting the hockey assists. So he's starting the action, like he's starting the play. He's creating that advantage. And then other guys are playing off that advantage. So to me, I mean, I think, again, it's more of a reflection of how they're defending him, especially like early, like Rudy was in that drop that was up to touch, but he was still dropped back. The switching, like that also takes away certain advantage creation from his standpoint. Like they just been really not trying to send a whole lot of help. That's been the something that stood out to me. Like I'm watching a play right now where Luka drives. I mean, it's early in the third quarter, like around 11-minute mark. He drives instead of he gets by Jay McDaniels. It's Mike Conley with late help a rotation over. Luka makes a kick-out pass, but that's the pass that goes to LeBron, and I think it goes to Rui in the opposite corner. Like Rui, Luka created that advantage, and he was a willing passer. He's just not getting the assist or the hockey assist. Yeah. So that's something like that assist thing, like that can be tricky just because, one, your teammates have to make shots. 2, you create that advantage, but not be the one getting the assist or hockey assists. So that's kind of where I've been at with Luka. And then obviously the game 3 is the game 3, but otherwise, I mean, offensively, he's been their best player.
Yeah, I think with the playmaking with Luka, I'm glad you brought up the advantage creation piece. I think teams are more willing to just let him in isolation specifically. They just said, look, we're not going to give him all these passing angles. In isolation, we're just going to let him kind of go one-on-one and throw a bigger, hopefully more athletic defender in front of him and see if they can somehow deter a shot. But otherwise, we are not going to – I mean, that's honestly a rare example of a possession that you talked about, Khobi, where like, okay, yeah, late rotation. That's where Luka's special at, where I think Luka is arguably the greatest passer of all time backpedal. He is the greatest player of all time at manipulating the low man. Like, if you let Luka get an advantage, specifically like in pick and roll, this is why drop with an athletic, if you have an athletic roller or any form of hedging or blitzing or whatever, basically, if we have to pull in a low man to tag a roller in any regard, like Luka's the best ever at manipulating that low man. And that's why, like I said, teams are just more so willing now. Like Minnesota's done it. Boston's done it. Mind you, they're 2 of the only teams that have any semblance of personnel to potentially do it. But in isolation, we're going to play a lot more one-on-one and just throw a Jalen Brown at them or a Jaden or an Ant even. The second thing is they haven't allowed him to be – if you go look at if you look at Luka's synergy data in this series, he's been an awful pick and roll scorer, but he's been an elite isolation scorer, which – if you look at the way the series has went, makes perfect sense because every pick and roll the Lakers have seen has been a switch, and the Lakers don't ever get to play with the numbers advantage out of the switch because they don't have the appropriate screening angle. So it's just an easy switch. We don't have a lob there anyway, so we're just able to jam the screen underneath, and we're cool. It just turns into an isolation attempt anyway. So I think there's some tactical stuff they could have done better. The one time they did actually screen the Luka's defenders back to get some sort of a seal and advantage. You got a 4-on-3 with Rui. Rui had a possession where he kicked out to the corner. Yeah, one where he also got a layup out of it. So, like, simple stuff like that, I think also just allows Luka as a playmaker to expand a bit more in the offense. But I think some of it is, like you said, what Minnesota is doing defensively.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they came into the series, and I think even I think it was before game 1. Maybe it was game 2. It was here in LA. Someone asked Chris Finch, like, when you were game planning for this series, how much did you watch what Boston did in the finals against Dallas and Luka last year? And he said, and he acknowledged like a little bit, but we more so watched our own film from the Western Conference Finals last year. and figured out, what could we have done better? What would have been a better strategy from that standpoint. And again, they seem to have been very purposeful in terms of, we're not trying to put two on the ball on Luka. That's where he's at his most dangerous. That he's too good of a playmaker, and that's how you get. I mean, to me, and that's reflected in not just Luka's assists, but look at how every other, all the role players, all the non-LeBron, non-Austin guys have looked just offensively. They're not able to get into a rhythm because they're not getting those same 4-on-3 opportunities. Playing out of whether it's at the short roll with Jackson or Vando or even LeBron. Those haven't been as frequent as we saw during certain segments of the regular season. Luka's been, again, I have it up here. He's the third, he has the third most ISO possessions in the playoffs, which he's.
If I had to guess, was 1 and 2. Is it still Tatum? No, Tatum missed game 2, so I don't think Tatum would be there. Would it be Shea still, Kawhi?
Oh, I was going by a per game basis.
Okay.
But
then Tatum would have to be there.
Well, yeah. Tatum's number 1 and Ant's number 2. But even with I was gonna say, even with Tatum missing one of the games, he's still number 2 from a totals perspective, just because he's top at isolations per game, 11.7, then it's Ant at 10.3, then it's Luka at 8. So that, and again, he's killing in those situations, but what the question is is the team as a whole able to benefit out of that the most it can be? And up to this point, Luka's been able to get he's been able to score efficiently, but Minnesota's that's great. We're not letting you get this. We're not letting you do what you did in the third quarter. That's actually more dangerous for us. You can go off for 16 in the first quarter, 14 in the first quarter. You can do that, and you can have these awesome performances, but we're not letting you ignite this. Get things ignited for your team in a bigger way.
I think if there was a potential criticism of Luka offensively, and this is even really a criticism. By the way, the Lakers half-court offense in the third quarter was scoring at 1.5 points per possession. That's insane. Every other quarter in the half court, the Lakers were scoring at 0.96 points per possession, and quarters 1, 2, and 4. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Anyway, I think the one potential criticism at this point for Luka offensively would be, I'm not quite sure how elite he is as a 5-out operator. For example, I think Haliburton can do the 5-out thing all day long, for example. Just using him as an example. I think Halliburton's the quick decision making he gives the ball up so freaking quickly that it doesn't even matter. And he's also this elite decision maker at all times. Not saying Luka isn't an elite decision maker, but Haliburton just has no turnovers essentially. Brunson's another guy. I think Brunson's the guy I should have said. These high volume scorers that operate out of 5-out, but not equally, but also a really good playmaker. 3-level scores similarly to Luka. Because I think Luka still at this point, Luka maybe needs for, again, the playmaking aspect and to cause, again, what he's generationally, or I said the greatest of all time at, be able to manipulate the low man. He can't do that, I think, at this point, at a standstill drive, where, because like we said, teams are just going to live with that. Whereas with that with the Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively, that are not these insanely talented one-on-one scorers, but they can also attack like a seal in the post. Or if you want to switch, okay, cool, we'll just seal you off. And unless we're facing the Celtics, we'll be able to just finish over whoever you switched on. And we can also attack out of the short roll. Without that, I think we've seen that a little bit with the Lakers' only capable lob threat, in air quotes, being Jackson Hayes. And him being Luka now playing out of 5-out solely now. There is some potential question mark there. And that's not even the drawback on Luka. That's just more so, okay, cool, let's build a team around Luka's skill set. That's not even a Luka thing. That's more a personnel. But I think that's something that if you want to poke a hole or just make an observation, that would be it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, To your point, that's more of a roster construction. Like it's been known that Luka likes to have a lob threat as a big man on the floor. Like that's where he's thrived. And when Jackson's on the floor, the Lakers just simply don't have one. They don't have a guy who can be a vertical spacer, have a guy who can play out of. I mean, Vando can play out of the short roll, but he's not a vertical spacer. LeBron can play out of the short roll. Like they have guys who can do it, but the vertical space is not the same. Yeah. Like that. And then if you're putting Luka, LeBron in pick and rolls, it's going to be a switch.
A switch, yeah.
So, but then that's when you get into, you have to have the proper screening angles, and maybe that's when you can really get into that. But that's a different issue.
Right. All right. Last couple of things here. Let's talk about Game 5 more specifically. Let's start. Which side of the ball do we want to talk about here to start?
I'll love it. Yeah, I mean, it's your show. You choose. You want to talk offense? You want to talk defense? I got something for both.
All right. We'll talk about the Lakers defense. So, Khobi, you gave me the option of picking. All right, cool. I'll give you the first crack at it. What do you think is the biggest defensive adjustment you need to see the Lakers heading into Game 5? They want to extend the series.
Chill on the soft switching,
please,
against Anthony Edwards. More specifically, when Luka's involved, don't just give him that look. Me and Yo, I think you've had Yo on your show. Like I know he's talked about it. Well, him and I were texting about it. I think he said they should play more coverage. I think they should just outright blitz. If Ant's gonna put Luka in pick and rolls, I say blitz him. Maybe even hedge depending on who's guarding Ant.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm good on the soft switching. I'm good on it. It's gotten to the point where the Timberwolves are just going to go at it, and then that's where it's going to force you to help because they know that more often than not, Ant can get by Luka, and he's going to put you in rotation. The things that it's funny because Minnesota's comfortable doing that with Luka, and all right, you go ahead and live, and you go cook. If we need to help, we'll send the help, but we're going to be confident in our guys, in whoever, Randall, Reed, Gobert.
McDaniels.
We're going to let them
Rudy.
stay out there. Yeah, Rudy. Gobert. They're going to let them out there, and they're going to try their best not to send that help. The Lakers, you can't have that same confidence when it's Ant on Luka. He's usually going to get it by. He's going to get into the paint, kick out something. Create an advantage. And so that would be my first suggestion. Just chill on soft switching. If they put Luka in action with Ant as a ball handler, don't send two to the ball, trap, head, whatever. Do something different. Just do something different.
Yeah, I hate that I'm grabbing the low-hanging fruit and agreeing with you, but that's so obviously the biggest one. And I've almost been calling for this since they lost to Charlotte after the All-Star break. I've been begging for them to stop doing this. Because all that happened down the stretch of that Charlotte game was LaMelo. Oh, okay, I can just get Luka on me every single time and nothing's gonna happen. Okay, cool. And that's how you kind of, LaMelo's able to walk you down the fourth. And that's how you can kind of expose some of Luka's flaws defensively. Now, like you said, you have, the occasional possession from Luka where he is able to move his feet and use his size in certain situations to stonewall a drive. I think there's been several instances specifically with Julius Randle. Now, There's also going to be equally the same amount of possessions where Julius Randle it doesn't matter. He still gets right by Luka. But with Ant, the Timberwolves are effectively able to just get the high screen and roll, get the switch with Luka, and effectively operate with an advantage with 18 seconds left on the clock. They burned 6 seconds of their half-court offense, and they didn't have to do anything. Okay, cool. It took them 4 seconds to get the ball up the court. And then within 3 seconds, we got our matchup that we want. And now we have, 17 seconds to operate with a immediate advantage. And it's funny because I think the Lakers, probably their only potential defensive superpower is their ability. I think they legitimately do a really good job of scrambling. And that's why I like the idea of blitzing, just aggressively blitzing Ant if it's Luka involved. Or even hedging. I don't even think necessarily it matters. And the reason why I say that is because, again, it's a different type of rotating and scrambling if we are doing it out of a screen where we're already set and we know where our rotations are coming from compared to immediate blow by. Now we are scrambling last minute and now we are rotating and now Naz Reid's open for three. It's a completely different type of rotation. And I think one of the players that's so easy to just go watch teams hunt him especially post like 2016 is Steph. Like if you watch the Warriors post 2016, even a little bit in 2016, they would not just concede the switch. As a matter of fact, Lakers example, 2022, the fact that the Lakers were trying to switch on Steph and Golden State just refused to concede the switch or soft switch, that led to Lonnie Walker just going on for 60 in the fourth. Because it would be inverted pick and roll with Bron and Lonnie. Steph's going to show or soft hedge, and Bron's going to hit he would go behind the back pass to Lonnie open three, or Lonnie attacks the closeout, one dribble pull, or whatever the example may be. But, and even though I'm referring to an example where like the Lakers or like that didn't work, it's a better outcome for Golden State, especially. It's a better outcome if you just do that and will live with a Lonnie Walker fourth quarter miracle, as opposed to 6'3" Steph Curry having to guard 6'9" LeBron with 15 seconds left on the shot clock. That's an immediate disadvantage for you, regardless of how elite Draymond is away from the ball. So you're going to give up a couple shots to Nas. You're going to give up a couple of shots to Dante on above the break threes. There's going to be a possession where Julius attacks the closeout correctly and is able to get downhill on you. But those are, for the Lakers, better examples or better options than just conceding a soft switch and letting Ant operate with the whole shot clock for the most part. And also see if these other guys can play make out of short rolls. I'm very skeptical on any of their ability, unless you're like Mike Conley, and I think they played Mike off the floor for the most part. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's very much where I'm coming at it from, just because to me the most dangerous games with Ant is where he's just improved enough. Like he's improved enough as a playmaker where if he's able to get downhill and he's able to, create that advantage, he can play out of it now. Like he knows the reads. This isn't 2022 Ant. This isn't even 2023
even last year.
Yeah, even last year. Like this is an improved playmaker. So, and I'm also inviting him to make more of those short roll reads, in the situation. But at least he's not going to be the one directly assisting to an open play. Like, it would be more so, like you said, depending on who Luka's guarding in that moment, and maybe Randall has to make that short read. It may be Nas making that short read. It could be a variety of players making that read. I would rather put them in those situations than letting Ant, being able to get to the rim, or I know on certain ISOs, they'll flood and they'll have that, take that man from the weak side and bring it over to the strong side block. Like Ant's able to make, I think that's a good strategy. But I think they can be even more aggressive. And so it doesn't have to be all the time. That's the other suggestion I had.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you send the double. Sometimes you switch it up, switch up your pitches just to keep him off balance. I think that's also important. If you keep allowing great players to see the same thing over and over again, they're going to figure it out. Their coaching staff's going to figure it out. They're going to figure out a rhythm to it. But if one possession you hedge, one possession you just outright blitz, so if you send an early double and they're just not expecting it and they just get the ball out of his hands, you mix up your pitches, then you can keep him off balance. And that can be the difference between, him having, him getting a drive to the basket and then a kick out for a three and then another drive for a layup. And then, maybe he misses another layup. So that's 5 points versus, maybe he's getting a turnover one of those possessions. Maybe he takes he's a great pull-up three shooter, but maybe he takes the pull-up three over two guys, not anticipating that double or not anticipating that hedge. That could be the, 5 points on whatever that was Sunday. 5 points is the difference between a win and a loss. Yeah. So it could be, sometimes it can be that difference. So I'm with you.
And to the point about Ant, I think if you allow Ant to play make from a standstill or where he's playmaking on the drive to your point, there's a possession from Ant. I want to say it's game 3 because I feel like I've talked about it on another pod. So I'm going to say it's game 3 where he attacks baseline and the Lakers are in their flooding defensive or isolation scheme. And he drives baseline, goes into the help, and he throws an insane skip pass to the opposite wing. And I think this might be the possession where he yells at Dante because I think it gets to Nas and Nas one mores it maybe. And that's where Dante kind of hesitates. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different example. But there's for sure a play where Ant, I'm going to have to pull it up. Ant drives baseline. It's on the right. He's in the right corner or right wing, attacking baseline. Lakers are flooded over. Quarter skip pass. I'm like, dog, objectively, Ant was not doing this last year. And see, kind of to your point, like, okay, cool, we're going to just mix it up. We're going to test your ability to make short roll pocket passes. Cool, you did that. Guess what? We got the ball in your hands. See if Jaden or if Nas, if Julius can consistently attack the advantage. And we're already rotated, which is one of our strengths as a defense anyway. So see if they can attack that and make the necessary decision out of it. And if you lose game 5, guess what? You're down 3-1 anyway. If that's how we lose, oh well. But I'm not going to keep letting Ant just get 45 and 8 efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one or the other. It's either got to be 45 or it's got to be 8. Now, obviously, you don't want either, but you have to pick your poison. You can't let it be both. I did pull up the play because I thought this is the play you're talking about. Minnesota's up 106-103.
Is it game 3?
Yeah, game 3.
Okay, I'm gonna find it.
It's the Ant. I think it was. Who's this? Is this Ant McDaniel's pick and roll?
Did it lead to an assist?
Yeah, it was an assist. And Lakers, like, it looks like they're trying to trap Ant with Luka and Dorian, and just like Ant just races past. He just races past Luka, just beats him to the baseline. Austin's right there on the block, kind of cutting off McDaniels.
Yes.
So he made the help, and then it's LeBron on the weak side. He's got to have both Dante in the weak side corner, and then Nas on the weak side wing. And Ant makes the read to Nas, and Nas knocks down the catch and shoot 3.
I remember watching this. I remember it being this play because I remember in real time thinking Rui should have been a little bit closer to Nas because Bron's in a tough spot, having to honestly kind of play 3 because Austin kind of slides over even more because Dorian's behind the play. Luka's guarding Ant. So Bron's effectively, like, in terms of rotations, he's supposed to help out on Jaden at the rim because Austin slid over. Also worry about Dante deep corner, and he's supposed to close out on Nas. That's just unrealistic. Rui has to slide over a little bit more.
Yeah, because if Ant makes that, I mean, I don't even know if that angle is even possible, but if he makes that pass to Randall,
that'd be a good job.
I mean, great job. Is also, like, the odds of making that pass are slim because he's behind it. He's almost behind the backcourt at this point. Yeah. So he would have to, like, throw it over, like, Luka and McDaniels, and then at that point, like, so yeah, I agree. Like, he could have been, like, Rui was late with the contest.
Yeah,
he got in there late, but again, margins.
Yeah, Ant's been awesome as a playmaker. All right, last thing, let's talk about the Lakers' offense. Well, really quickly, which one do you think is more concerning throughout the series, Lakers' offense or their defense?
Offense.
Okay, so perfect transition. What do you think is the biggest offensive adjustment needed for the Lakers to prolong the series?
I kind of want you to go first since I took the defense one, so I won't. So you don't have to pick the low hanging fruit. I want to see what you say. I'm very curious to see what you say about this.
Yeah, I think JJ had an interesting quote after game 1. I think is when you guys asked him about the organized offense thing, and I'm not even going to disagree with what he said because I kind of see his line of thinking where he was basically look organized offense for us is. It's also very apparent how, like, chronically online JJ Redick still is, and it sucks that, like, Elon, like, took away the, like, likes where you can see people's likes. I swear we would see like 1 billion likes of JJ every single time Tim posts something about organized offense. Anyway, he said basically for us organized offense is our spacing and us not being bunched up, how we crash and things like that. And to a certain extent, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, cool. Let's call it the set attack rate or something like that. I think the biggest thing, I just don't think the Lakers have done a good job at all at forcing Minnesota to adjust and stop switching. They haven't really done much. And this sounds like such a small margin, like you've been saying all show, or such like a micro thing that just doesn't matter. But, like, some of this stuff, like, can potentially swing series. And I know, like, if you're a non-Laker fan, I've seen a few non-Laker fans on Twitter saying, okay, so do people really think that the Lakers would be winning this series if they would call more plays? That's not necessarily what I think what people are saying. I do think that if the Lakers were more intentional with their set attacks, not even saying run more plays necessarily, but I think if they were more intentional with the concepts they are trying to attack the Timberwolves defense with, then you can see the adjustment that then downward spirals everything to where, okay, now you're getting more consistently third quarters where Minnesota is hedging or blitzing more. Maybe you get the examples, and the Lakers have been great against this either, but now you get the examples where Minnesota is playing more drop. But I thought that's one of the reasons why I said going into the series that Jaden wasn't a good Luka defender, because if you go back to last year in the conference finals, Luka was able to throw his body around at Jaden and kind of keep Jaden McDaniels in jail because the Timberwolves weren't aggressively – it's not even aggressive. Timberwolves weren't switching. They were either hedging or in drop a lot, which allows Luka to kind of keep Jaden in jail, throw his weight around at him a little bit, get him in foul trouble. I don't have the stats right from me, but watching the series live and doing some breakdowns on the series, it felt like Jaden was in foul trouble a lot throughout that series, and to the point where Kyle Anderson was objectively the best Luka defender in the conference finals last year, because you couldn't really throw Ant on him. It was too taxing on his offensive load that he also had to carry. So not mixing up, being more intentional with the concepts you're trying to go at, and doesn't even need to be so extravagant. Effing fix your screening angles. Stop going with these east to west screening angles because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all. And they're also the not soft in terms of like I'm calling them soft, but it's also I'll say this, the most passive ass screen ever as well, to where we are also saying, cool, we're going to soft switch on defense. We want you to soft switch too. So here's this passive ass screen. Cool. We're going to let you switch. And last thing, I think it's very, very apparent who JJ likes coaching wise. Like it clear as day that he's very, very close with Joe Mazzulla. Because I think JJ's vision for the Lakers offense is kind of what Boston wants to do. We're going to spread the floor out. We're going to let our primary initiators attack in isolation, some ball screen stuff. We're going to try to get in JJ. What I'm about to say, he said out of his own mouth. We're going to get to our driving kick stuff, play off an advantage, and we're going to try to get paint touches and corner threes to catch 2 threes. Like, this is stuff he said, and I think if you watch Boston, it's another reason why like the Lakers 3-point volume has skyrocketed post Luka trade, because I think this is what JJ wants offensively. But just change your screening angles. That's such a marginal thing. Will immediately attack the switching, immediately cause your offense that I think has enough decision makers to be able to play with a numbers advantage. And eventually Minnesota's going to have to make an adjustment, or they're just going to get blitzed in the game. And at this rate, I don't want to give Bron, if I'm Minnesota, any other opportunities to prolong the series. Because then if it gets to a game 6 and the Lakers win, it's, oh no, Bron's been here before. We're going back to game 7, back at crypto, and hopefully the crowd will be rocking for game 7. Like that Minnesota will have to adjust is basically what I'm saying. So put the pressure on Minnesota and make them adjust, because they've just been able to do the same thing for the entire series. A long rant. I apologize.
No, that's why I wanted you to go first, because you said it better than I would have. The only thing I would add, or not only, because there are multiple. The main thing I would add is I also think they need to get into whatever they're doing. They just need to get into it quicker. There are too many possessions where they're. I mean, granted, it's not fully their fault. I mean, the pressure. I mean, I have to give credit to Minnesota. I know I sound like tip your cap to Minnesota, right? Tip your hat to Minnesota. Shout out to the former head coach. There's been too many possessions where, you're starting at 16, 15, 14 on the clock, and you're not even getting to an action. I remember I was watching, I think, the start of the fourth quarter of game 4, and I swear there's a possession where the first screen wasn't set until it was like 12 or 11 seconds left on the shot clock. Over half the shot clock's gone, but just about half is gone, and you're finally getting your first screen into play. Like, again, Minnesota's is playing a part in that in terms of the pressure that McDaniels is providing on Luka, the full court pressure they're providing defensively. So you have to counter that, but they need to get into some of their offensive, whether it's their screening, get into their sets much earlier in possessions, because they're just taking away options within their sets, within their offensive actions, by starting so late in the clock. And again, I know this isn't the fastest team. They're pretty methodical with their attack, which isn't surprising when you look at who the team is led by. Yeah. But that's another piece of low-hanging fruit. If you're able to start at 17, 16 as opposed to 11, 12, or even 18, 19 instead of 12, 13, well, then maybe you get another, 4, 5, 6 seconds to get into another action or to get into, making another couple of swing passes. And that could be the difference between a shot clock violation versus a made shot or, a missed shot versus, you get one more swing pass, you get a decent look, or just guy being able to drive into the paint. I agree with everything you said. The other thing is just get into it earlier. Just get into it quicker. And again, Minnesota's going to provide that pressure, but you have to find counters to that pressure. So that's another big thing.
It's a flat ball screen in the middle of the floor. It's so, bro, this is high school stuff. I'm not insulting myself, but guys, why can we not handle full court pressure as grown adults? What are we doing? Man. Anything else offensively? I feel like it's the offense. It's more frustrating because it's pretty easy solutions. Play faster, be more intentional with your attacks, and you shouldn't let the full court pressure bother you because it's the easy counter to it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also frustrating because this is supposed to be a team that just thrives offensively based off the personnel.
Yeah,
and they haven't. So yeah, those are the main things. You can talk about running more sets and I asked about I think before game 3 about the whole. I think I just asked you straight up what relationship do you see between organized offense and running more sets? He provided the answer that he did. And for those who didn't see it or read it, listen to it, the summary is that there can be a correlation, but there's not all the same. There's not a whole lot of teams that will, they're going to call a set every single time up the floor. I know when people hear that, they're going to be like, that's not what he asked. I know that's not what I asked, but that was part of his answer. And then, basically, I feel like we've kind of it's been asked enough by certain people that we kind of have an idea by what JJ and his coaching staff view as organized offense versus what others view. Less of a set thing, more of a concepts, and whether it's their spacing, all more conceptual rather than hard and fast. All right, this is what organized offense looks like in terms of running the set.
Yeah. Lakers so far in the playoffs are third in 3-point rate. The only teams with a higher 3-point rate are the Cavs and the Golden State Warriors. In terms of true shooting percentage of the playoffs, the Lakers are 5th. Minnesota's actually 6th. So in terms of overall offensive output, the Lakers have been fine when they've been able to have an opportunity to score. It's just been turnovers or some silly stuff. Really, it turns the Lakers get a shot, but they're relatively efficient.
Wait, the Lakers are. Wait, you said what are the Lakers in true shooting?
In the playoffs, the Lakers are 5th in true shooting.
What are you looking at? I'm just curious.
Play-by-play stats.
Okay, gotcha.
5th at true shooting. Minnesota's 6th. Cleveland's 1 at 66%. The gap between Indiana's 2 at 62%, to the point where the gap between Indiana and whoever's 3 is so large that it would take 3 to 11, 3 to 13. It's how big the gap is between Indiana, whoever's 3rd. That's how long it would take you to meet that gap between Indiana, who are in the Clippers, who are 3rd. Point is, Lakers have been fine, I think, when they've been able to get a shot up. Just stop turning the damn ball over and be more intentional. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, be more intentional and run it earlier. Is
marginal stuff.
Marginal stuff, but margins again. I think that's kind of how I started this episode. The margins matter.
Yeah.
Being able, this stuff adds up because I'm looking at NBA.com. They have the Lakers tied for 3rd with the Clippers from true shooting.
Okay.
Behind the Cavs at 66 and the Pacers at 62.5, or Cavs 66.5, Pacers 62.5. But despite being that high in shooting, they're 8th in offensive rating. But that plays into the factor of they turn the ball over on 16% of their possessions.
How much?
16%.
Oh.
16. My bad. 16%. 16. And which is among the playoff teams.
Yeah.
12th. Memphis was, the other teams that, I can tell you the other teams. Memphis 16, Detroit 15.
About to be eliminated.
Miami 14.
Eliminated.
Detroit 13. Lakers 12th.
Okay.
Houston 11.
So about to be who was 15?
Detroit.
Who was 14?
Miami.
13? You said Detroit twice then.
Denver's
Oh, okay.
13.
Okay, so like besides Denver, 11 through 16 are either teams that are eliminated or teams down 3-1.
Yeah, and then 1 through 10, and then 10's Boston, the Clippers are 9, Golden State's 8. So then Boston's also like who they're also. And I guess you could say the same about the Lakers. This is also like who they're facing. Like this is part of what Minnesota does.
Yeah.
At the same time, like if you can't be like Minnesota's not turning the ball over much at all. Like they're 4th in turnover percentage, and then they're just grabbing a bunch of offensive rebounds. So you're just losing possession after possession after possession, and then you're not getting to your stuff early enough. There's just so much you're losing that you just can't make up for with just pure shot making.
Which is why the Timberwolves in the playoffs are 2nd in offensive rating.
Despite being, at least according to NBA.com, it's not even bad. I can't even say despite 6th in true shooting. They're below the Lakers by we might as well say 1.4% in terms of true shooting, but they are well and above them in offensive rating, scoring over 7 points more per 100 possessions, despite the quote-unquote shot-making statistic or shot-making stat being so close.
Yeah. Well,
margins.
I think that's just been the theme of the episode. It's just margins.
There you go.
And Khobi singing with Jovan and Dan would have been a big improvement on the margins. We're gonna end how we started. Khobi, my man, anything you wanna shout out before we get out of here? Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter, by the way, or X at Khobi_Price. But yeah, anything you want to shout out before we head out of here?
Yeah, no, obviously I'll have a story in the morning. I've been doing them before each game, just like 3 things I'm looking for ahead of the game. So that'll be published tomorrow morning ahead of game 5. I had my show on Bleacher Report earlier. You can go to my profile on the Bleacher Report app and rewatch it if you weren't able to watch it live. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe. As always, go Lake Show. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.